Welcome to tonight's Saturday Night Special, episode 52.
I'm Winston Clements, motivational speaker and limitation breaker. I challenge you to invest yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to recognize your limitations are an illusion and develop resilience is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship podcast with my friend Scott Mader.
The truth is, whether you're a top-down, big-picture person, or whether you're just looking at the little details and building them up into a bigger picture, both approaches work. So it doesn't really, quote, matter which one you look at. There isn't a right or a wrong answer here. Instead, it's about recognizing how you view things, because when you figure that out, then you begin to frame things that way.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In tonight's Saturday Night Special, I talk with you about the difference between breaking things down in your life and building them up, why you may view it one way or the other and knowing matters, and how to approach both, how it matters for you and sometimes how it doesn't. You know, one area that a lot of folks need some help with is around the area of productivity. Getting not just more things done, but actually getting the right things done can be really, really tough. I've got a course called Productivity for Your Passion that's designed to help you do this and then to hold you accountable and walk with you so that you can tailor productivity not just to be getting more done, but actually getting the right things done. What's more, we take the approach of looking at your personality and how you actually look at things in the world and tailor the productivity system to your personality. Because the truth is, a lot of the systems that are out there are written really well for somebody with a particular personality type. But if you have a different approach to things, they just don't work. But there's tools and techniques and approaches that you can take that will work for anyone. And we help you do that in Productivity for Your Passion. Check it out over at inspiredstewardship.com/launch. When I talk about building it up or breaking it down here, I'm not talking about deconstructing things. I'm not talking about looking at something and tearing it down in a destructive way or building up others in a positive way. Here I'm actually talking about how we, for ourselves and for others, can frame the decisions that we make, can frame the goals that we set, can frame how we go through and do things. See, the truth is that I've discovered when working with people that some people are kind of big picture first, and then they kind of work backwards and break it into smaller details. And other people start with the next step or the small action and then build it up into a bigger picture. They have a general direction that they want to go, but they don't necessarily have to see the whole picture before they can begin taking action. It has a lot to do with how we're wired and how we look at the world. And there's a difference in how we approach things when we look at things that way. You know, if you have a big, hairy, audacious goal that you want to do, knowing how you approach those things can really help you take effective action. So one of the questions to ask is, when you think about a new task, something that you've never done before, do you kind of try to paint a picture of what it's going to look like to get there? And then you begin to think about, now, what are all of the steps that I need to take to get from where I am today to where I want to go? If so, you want to frame things from a big picture perspective first, and then break it down into the details second. On the other hand, sometimes what I've discovered is that people think about things, and when they think about where they want to go or some goal, big, hairy, audacious goal, all they want to know is what's the tiny step that I need to take today that moves me forward. They don't have to paint a real detailed picture of what that end destination looks like, what the big picture looks like. And you may view it one way or the other. It has to do with how you were raised. It has to do with how you look at things. It has to do with how you're wired. You know, as a detail person, I like to know all of the details. So I have to sit down and really paint a clear picture of what success looks like and then work backwards. So for me, when I sit down to do planning, I want to think about the biggest component first. So I kind of think about, where do I want things to be in 5 years from now? And then I think about, well, okay, if that's where I want to be in 5 years, then what do I need to do this next year to be moving in that direction? And then from the year, I'll begin to break it down and I say, okay, great. What do I want to focus on in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4? And then from there, I'll take that down another step and I'll say, great, in quarter 1, these are the specific things I'm focusing on. What do I need to do in the first month, the second month, the third month? What do I need to do in the first week, the second week, the third week, the fourth week, and so on? And then what do I need to do each day? And when I break it down into that, now I end up with actions that I'm taking each and every day that move me towards my destination. But the truth is, I don't have to do it that way. You could also think about, what are the actions that I need to take tomorrow that move me in the general direction that I want to go? Simply, what do I need to do today that makes today a little better than yesterday? Now, at first glance, people will say, yeah, but how does that point you in the direction that you ultimately want to get in 5 years? And the truth is, I've seen people that's all they really focus on is that little next step detailed piece. And maybe they're focusing a week or two out or a month out or even 12 weeks out, but that's about the most that they focus. They don't need a 5-year plan to move in a forward destination. A lot of it depends on, not only how you see the world, but what kinds of goals are you trying to set? And as you develop this, as you begin to recognize what works for you, then you begin to be able to break that down and mirror that approach in other areas. See, it doesn't just have to do with goal setting. For me, that's also how I frame things like gratitude. I look at my gratitude on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, how these things fit together. It becomes a process of how I look at things. I always am looking to plan, then to reflect on what actually happened after tracking what actually happened. And then I want to make revisions in my actions. It lets me do incremental improvement. The truth is, whether you're a top-down, big picture person, or whether you're just looking at the little details and building them up into a bigger picture, both approaches work. So it doesn't really, quote, matter which one you look at. There isn't a right or a wrong answer here. Instead, it's about recognizing how you view things, because when you figure that out, then you begin to frame things that way. If you want to make financial decisions, you can frame them through this kind of filter. If you want to make decisions about your productivity, you can frame it through this kind of filter. If you want to make decisions about anything like that, you can frame it through this kind of filter. But the first step is to know, how do you view the world? Do you tend to try to build things up, or do you tend to start with the big picture and break it down? Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.